What's up, Brilly Nation? Welcome back to another Minecraft Better Than Adventure playthrough. Right now, I'm still in the strip mine that I ended off last episode in. I'm gonna walk back to my main house, drop off all the stuff I got, maybe make myself some new armor. And today, as I'm sure you can judge by the title, I want to talk about cancel culture. This will actually be part 1 of my part 2 of this rant. Part 2 should be releasing, within the next week or so. But today, I want to focus mainly on cancel culture and how it relates to YouTubers. I have a few different comparisons I want to make, and so let's just get right into it. So first off, I have 2 stories to tell you about stuff that happened this past summer, like controversies, I guess you could call them. The first is actually about a guy who isn't a content creator whatsoever. He's an actual celebrity, and that's Young Thug. Young Thug is a rapper, and earlier this year, he released a new album. It had a bunch of people on it: Drake, Travis Scott, Lil Uzi Vert, a bunch of popular artists. And I listened to the album when it first came out, and I liked it. It's an alright album, nothing too special. I went on Wikipedia to check the producer credits for the album to see, if there's anybody I recognize. There's a few producers I follow, like Metro Boomin, Taurus, Charlie Heath. They're all cool guys. And I saw that the producer, Dr. Luke, had produced like 1 or 2 songs off the album. Now, if you don't know who Dr. Luke is, Dr. Luke used to be like this very prominent pop music producer. Every old Kesha song, every old Katy Perry song, he probably produced. But what happened is in around 2015 to 2017, Kesha, the artist he worked with the most, came out with sexual misconduct, I believe sexual assault allegations against Dr. Luke, alleging he had been this horrible monster this entire time that nobody was really paying any attention to. And I believe this situation went to court, and Kesha, I think, actually lost, if I remember correctly. But I remember it's generally considered by most people in the industry that even though Kesha lost legally, Dr. Luke definitely, at the very least, was not a good person to work with. If he didn't assault anybody, he was still creepy. So I was kind of disappointed that Young Thug was still recording with them. And there are other artists who still record with him. Dr. Luke produces a lot of Doja Cat songs. But then I realized something. Young Thug, the rapper who I was currently listening to the day he released his album, is currently in prison, awaiting trial for gang activity. He's being accused of orchestrating murders and stuff like that. He's an even worse person than Dr. Luke objectively. Oh, if he gets found guilty. Which he most likely will based on stuff I've been hearing. So why do I care so much that Dr. Luke is this terrible person? I'm disappointed that Young Thug would record with him when Young Thug is even worse and has done worse things. I'll leave that question like that for now. I want to give my second example. So I'm sure you remember also earlier this summer, there was this submarine with 5 or at least a few billionaires on it that went under to see the Titanic, but then it unfortunately imploded, literally imploded, and everybody on board died. And a lot of people on Twitter thought this was kind of funny. It was a kind of funny premise that a bunch of billionaires go down to try to see the Titanic. A stupid idea, and then they end up dying because it seems super dangerous. And I think most people would be lying if they said they didn't find the jokes at least a little funny. There was this one person who I am somewhat aware of. It's Wilbur Soot has a band called Lovejoy, and this is the guitarist or something in that band. So I sometimes see his tweets on my timeline, because I kind of follow some people associated with the GMSMP. And all he said on the situation was I kind of think it's a bit mean that people are making fun of these guys when it was objectively a tragedy that occurred. And the GMSMP and Lovejoy stands just went off on this one dude. I think his name is Ash Kabozo, whatever. I don't really care enough. They were calling him racist and sexist for supporting these billionaires. They were oh, well, do you think this Greek ship that also sunk a few days ago with a bunch of immigrants on it, do you think these billionaires' lives mean more than those Greek immigrants? This is the weirdest, most insane replies you're gonna think of to somebody just saying, hey guys, maybe let's be more respectful of dead people. And I was just watching this situation unfold, and I was like, what is this community? As I said before, I thought the jokes were pretty funny. Well, objectively, yeah, it is kind of like a mean thing to say about people cheering on their deaths. And this one guy who's pointing that out to them is being like ridiculed and accused of being like just being dogpiled for thinking people should be allowed to live sometimes. So I think the Young Thug and the Lovejoy, these two kind of dramas that happened, are a good example of like how there's no one right way to think on the internet. You'll see so many people these days, especially on YouTube, say like, oh, you can't even call people idiots anymore without being canceled, without being demonetized. And that is only true if you appeal to super like liberal left wing accepting of everybody fan base. Lovejoy and Ash Kobozo had a very liberal left wing fan base, so when they said something like, hey guys, let's not be mean to billionaires, they received a ton of backlash for it, because that's just how it works in that community. Meanwhile, you have the rap community that really doesn't care at all about what their favorite rappers do. People like Young Thug, who is in jail right now. Travis Scott, who had a concert where 10 people died. Playboy Cardi and Lil Uzi Vert are both, like, domestic abusers. Drake might be a pedophile. Kanye, there's, like, no even explanation needed there. These, like, 6 people are probably the 6 most respected, generally, rappers right now. And they've all done terrible things, just nobody cares. Because all of their fans and all of their community are just willing to separate art from the artist. Which is something that the Minecraft community, I mean, Lovejoy isn't really Minecraft, but all of the people, or at least the majority of people who follow them, came from Minecraft. So I think it's fine to warp them in here. But all of these people actually do care and are more sensitive. If Bill Bursitt did any of the things that all of the rappers I just listed did, he would have his career ruined in a second. If you don't agree with me that there are like levels to YouTube, and in some communities you can get away with saying things that you can't in others, I have another example, alright? So there's this guy named Stonepaw. He's like a Twitch streamer, I think. He was pretty popular. But I haven't really heard from him in a few months. I don't really know what happened until the other day I saw he had came back to Twitch after taking a huge break. And I didn't even know he was on a break to begin with. But apparently what had happened is that he had been exposed for saying like a bunch of racist things in like 2018. I couldn't actually find any chat messages. I just found a bunch of people talking about it. So I don't know exactly what he said. I heard he said slurs that were racist, so he probably had an N-word controversy. But a lot of people were not very accepting of his comeback, and that is because Stonepaw, whenever somebody else, like Mizkif or, I don't know, Jake Paul's controversy was before Stonepaw became big, but Jake Paul also had an N-word controversy. Whenever these people get into have old racist chat messages exposed, he would always be one of the first ones to say, this is wrong, they should have their career ruined. They should take a bunch of time to go back and reflect and probably just pursue a different career. So when it happened to Stonepaw, everybody was like, well, I guess we're just done with you, because he had attracted a very left-leaning, socially, like, woke community that is really sensitive to those kinds of issues. And, well, I personally don't think he should have had his career ruined over these years-old chat messages. Like, this is what people in this community care about, so there's really not much to say besides he kind of brought it upon himself. Now, in comparison, I want to talk about another YouTuber who is honestly in the same exact space as Stonepaw, only he has slightly different fans, and that is Swagger Souls. Swagger Souls, if you don't know, he was like a CSGO YouTuber, made some videos with this YouTuber called The Misfits back in the day. And he and Stonepaw even share some of the same friends. Both of them are friends of Jay Schlatt. That might be it. But I would imagine a lot of viewers of Stonepaw have also watched Swagger Souls at some point. Swagger Souls is even worse than Stonepaw in like the offensive, edgy jokes he's made in the past. You can find videos that are still up on his channel, and the thumbnails are of him and this other guy named Two Mads, who's a... Two Mads a whole rabbit hole for another day. Ooh, diamonds. I won't talk about it here. But you can find thumbnails Swagger Souls has of videos with Two Mad. They're just like absurd, honestly. Like, if Stonepaw, I was like, oh, he said the N-word back in 2018. Okay, whatever. But these are like something. These might actually constitute as. I could see an argument for these being worse. I'll show them on screen right now if I already haven't. And the thing about Swagger Souls is that even though these thumbnails are publicly available, you know, anybody can view them anytime. nobody really cares about this because unlike Sonpa, he doesn't have a super sensitive, socially aware, socially woke fan base. In fact, his fan base probably liked videos like this once, and that's why he has one in the first place. If it ever comes out that Swagger Souls was saying slurs in private, even like to this day, I'm not sure how many people would actually care. And at least how many people in his community would care. You might think that's bad if you're like coming from the Dream SMP community, but like what you can't really do anything about it. It's just that not all communities will think the same way, have the same opinions on jokes and stuff. I think the main moral to take from this video is that if a lot of like cancel culture stuff, you have a kind of a big say in how much you'll let it affect your channel. If you try to appeal to people who like to give in to cancel culture a lot, then you probably will have a harder time if like you have an N-word controversy or like you support the criminalization of abortion or don't support transgender people, but you are active in communities that generally do favor things like abortion and trans rights, it is much easier for you to get canceled than somebody who isn't really that associated with those communities. So basically, if you don't want to risk losing your career due to old chat messages, then just don't target your content towards people who would be offended by that. One quick thing I want to mention before I end this video, and this kind of doesn't really relate at all to what I've just talked about previously, is I want to talk about athletes for a quick thing. Like I just said for creators, I feel like oftentimes some creators are able to get away with saying things other creators couldn't, and that's basically just based on what type of content people make. Now, athletes, on the other hand, there is no, as far as I'm aware, there is no consistency in what these people can and can't do. And I want to give you guys 3 examples for this. The guys' names are Anthony Lamb, Josh Primo, and Miles Bridges. All 3 of them in the past 1 to 2 years have had accusations of various levels of sexual misconduct come out against them. But all 3 athletes, their punishments have been handled completely differently. So first, you have Josh Primo, who was probably hit the hardest. All 3 of these guys are basketball players. Josh was a member of the San Antonio Spurs. And earlier, at the start of the previous season, he was waived from the Spurs for, at the time, reasons that were not made public. A day later, it was revealed that the reason he was removed was because he had exposed himself to various women. I don't think he had, like, raped anybody or something like that. But, you know, he was acting inappropriately. That's really all he knows, that he was exposing himself to women. And he was, you know, away from the Spurs, and to this day, he has still not signed a new contract with any NBA team. He's still a free agent. I kind of doubt he'll ever play again, because this situation seems to have tarnished his career. However, then you have Miles Bridges, who is a player for the Hornets, and Miles, he'd been a player for like 3 or 4 years, and was a starter for them, but he was arrested for domestic abuse in the summer of 2022, and he had been like suspended by his team for the entire season because of this domestic abuse case. But now, even though I don't think the situation has been resolved legally, maybe it has, I'm just completely wrong here, he is now he's been doing practices with the team again, and they're slowly starting to bring him back into the team. And he'll probably play next season and be a normal player, because the NBA only suspended him for like 25 games. The Hornets suspended him for the rest of their games. So it just seems like he'll be able to get off scot-free. Well, not scot-free, because he faced some punishment, but now people are just kind of over it. And then the last person I want to talk about is Anthony Lamb, who I mentioned already too. Anthony Lamb was accused in late 2021 of raping a student at the University of Vermont while he was attending the school. Anthony Lamb at the time was playing for the Houston Rockets, and he was waived by them. Waived means released, if you don't know. But within a year, he had signed a new contract to play with the Golden State Warriors. And while he wasn't like a major part of the team, he wasn't a starter or anything, he did play 60 games for them in the regular season, according to Wikipedia, and even a few playoff games. What I'm trying to say here is that, you know, Josh Primo, Anthony Lamb, and Miles Bridges, all of them have acted inappropriately in some sort of manner sexually, right? but all 4 of them have faced varying levels of punishment. Josh Primo had his career completely ruined. Miles Bridges had his career put on hold for like a year, and Anthony Lamb was just kind of within a year just allowed to go back to normal. So there's just no real consistency there. It probably has a lot to do with like who your agent is, who your manager is, how they're able to cover up your whatever you do wrong. Maybe there's more to these stories than I know of. Maybe like Anthony Lamb, his case isn't as black as white, because it also hasn't been solved legally yet either. I remember there was this like NFL player who was in the draft last season called the Punt God, who was drafted by the Bills, and he was like some social media star too. But the thing with him is that he also had like rape accusations come out against him, so the Bills released him, and he didn't play the past season. But then last I saw from like a month or two ago is that he had been cleared of any wrongdoing. He wasn't actually associated in the actual crime at all, and he kind of like wants to return to the NFL because he's been cleared. I don't know if that happened to Anthony Lamb or Miles Bridges. I don't think it did, but maybe they've been informed privately that something's been going on. But yeah, in conclusion, I think content creators have more of a say in being canceled or not being canceled than you would think. I think if people target their audience towards people who are more sensitive to social issues, then they are more likely to be canceled and have a harder time getting uncanceled, while other creators who may tell edgy and offensive jokes on the regular, they'll probably be like more well off. They won't ever have to worry about having old chat messages exposed. So thank you guys for watching. I should hopefully be recording a part 2 to this video the same day, but maybe not. I'll have to come back later. But I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye, Burly Gang.